radio is AD on the radio. What?
Today on the show, the cereal that you ate growing up watching Saturday morning cartoons provides a great lesson in adult economics. We discuss possibly crooked TV pitchmen, and Funkhouser damages his employment prospects by bleeding profusely.
No, Donald Trump, I did not have a facelift.
Fake news, alternative facts.
Welcome to the future, where the glass is half full and you'll need new glasses, where you'll be jumping from conclusions.
The past is annulled, and a new future is born.
Never before in history has so much meant so little to so many. AD on the radio.
So when you were a kid, do you remember your first forays off into the world, oftentimes with mom? You get strapped up in that kid seat, or, oh man, once you're a big kid, you're allowed to get out of the kid seat, but you're not allowed to sit in the front seat yet. And you're sort of cruising around town, or at least this was my experience. You're kind of cruising around town in the back seat of mom's station wagon. I was. And my mom would kind of take me everywhere. This was, I think, during times before I started school. I have a hard time remembering this because my parents put me in school like pretty much freaking immediately. I went to Montessori school when I was like 2.5 years old, and it was incredible because I do remember the ability to spell the word orange when I was 2.5, and I seem to think that was a little further than most 2.5-year-olds push themselves. Like, I remember I had to read the word orange and I had to write in a circle with the appropriate orange crayon. And that was like age 2.5. So I know I was in school pretty early, but I guess you're not going to school full time. And as a consequence, I spent a lot of time in the back of mom's car as she was going places, doing stuff. Nowadays, people go to the gym, people do CrossFit, people do Pilates. My mom, true 80s style, went to aerobics class. And I would come with her in the back of the car and sit there reading a book as she was in aerobics class, watching people dance and not really understanding exactly what was going on. But I remember that it was supposedly good for you. So I'm like, okay, mom seems to enjoy it, and I get to go places and do stuff and see the world, and that's kind of all right. And then there would be the little outings around this stuff. Oh man, it was the best. I remember there was a fruit farm. Don't remember where it was, but I remember there was a fruit farm, and occasionally on the way to or on the way from my mom's aerobics class, we would stop at the fruit farm and get like a box of peaches and a watermelon, and I would sit there making a mess of myself in the back of the car and my fingers with a box of strawberries or blackberries or whatever it was. But I don't know if you had similar experiences. There's something very interesting about those first forays off into the world where your observational abilities are on 10 or 11 because you're a kid and you're taking the world in and you're still wondering what the hell is going on, and you want to know a little bit about everything. Nowadays, as adults, we kind of go through life with blinders on, don't we? You could pass by something remarkable and not even notice it because you're thinking about your job, you're thinking about your commute, you're thinking about those bills that have to be paid, you're thinking about, did you leave the garage door open? As you kind of get weighed down by adulthood, your mind closes off, not necessarily because you're a closed-minded person, but because there's so much occupying your thoughts and you're missing so much. And that sort of state of mind where you have a natural childlike curiosity, if you can ever do anything to get back to that, it's a good idea. It's sort of a game changer when you're able to sort of observe and think a little bit more about your surroundings. But I digress. One of the things that I noticed when I was going different places with my mom was gas stations, because we would have to stop. We'd have to pick up gas. And I remember it being sort of my first lesson in the value of a buck, because I would see my mom comparatively price shop for gas. She would see, all right, this is how much it costs here. Well, we're going to go to the place that's not so close to the highway, because the further you get from the highway, the less gas costs. I remember thinking, okay, when I have a car, which is clearly never going to happen, but when I have a car, I should try and buy my gas away from the highway. Why does it matter what gas costs? Well, if you don't spend all your money on gas, you can spend it on other things, was the logic my mom told me. Like, we'd go to the grocery store. Do you want this, that, and the other from the grocery store? Yeah. Well, if we get the cheaper gas here, we'll be able to get more toys or more candy. My mom never let me eat candy, but I got the economic picture pretty quick. So going out in the world and seeing that was a good foundation, I suppose, in the world of economics and how to stretch a buck and what stretching a buck meant. Looking after the pennies and hoping that the dollars would then look after themselves. But I'll never forget once we had a gas station a couple blocks away from our house. And when another gas station sprung up across the street, my mom was freaking delighted. And I asked her why. I was like, why is this so great that there's another gas station? We already have one. Why do we need two on the same corner? And she was like, oh, this is good. And I'll tell you why.
Real radio.
104.1.
Where the left and right come together for fundamental truths. AD on the radio, on Twitter at ADSXE.
So I'm a kid, and my experiences of the world are pretty much limited to the backseat of the family station wagon as mom is driving around. I lived in probably 8 different places before my family eventually just upped and moved to England, where we wound up being in one spot for several years afterwards. So I don't remember exactly where this happened, but I remember that being in the backseat of the car. Do you remember this? Do you remember going places with your mom? Do you remember looking out the window? Do you remember asking inane questions about every last thing that you saw? Do you remember how your seeking mind took in absolutely everything? Do you remember how your mind was open and over the years it gradually got closed off and you start asking less questions about things that you see, even though they beg the same questions a lot of the time? It's one of the most fertile times in a person's mind. Like I said, it's always useful if you can find a way to get back to that. But you learn, I think, key lessons when you're experiencing the world and asking your parents questions. And some of the answers to these questions are things that perhaps stay with you for life. And I remember I got my first economic lesson while my mom was driving around, comparatively price shopping for gas, where she was like, okay, there's this much gas, it's this much per gallon for gas over here, but further from the highway, it costs less. And if we get gas from the place where it costs less, well, that's going to save a couple pennies. And you do that enough times, and that's going to amount to a couple dollars. And you do that enough times, and that's going to amount to stuff that you can buy, or things that you can pay rent with, or perhaps things that you can feed yourselves with. I learned that saving money equaled thriving and surviving. And I learned, well, one of the first ways I learned to save money was by looking at the price of gas. But we had this one gas station that wasn't far from where we lived. And it was usually where we would go. My mom was like, this one's further from the highway. This is where we get our gas, unless we really need it. And we try and not run out of gas or get into a position where we need gas when the gas is more expensive. And then right across the street, up popped another gas station. And she was like, oh boy, that's great. And I remember going, why? We already have this one place that we go to. We already have this one spot that we go to. Why is it so great that there's another one literally right across the street? Is it because sometimes we want to get gas and we're going in a different direction? We don't want to have to turn around. And my mom laid another economic lesson on me. She dropped another economic truth bomb on me. She was like, no, price wars. I was like, what do you mean? What's a price war? She's like, well, they want us to buy their gas from them. So does the gas station across the street. So they're going to compete. You see those big signs? They're going to put the price of gas up there. And they're slowly going to whittle away the prices of each other's gas until it falls over and over and over again. We're going to get the best price on gas because there's a price war happening. There's competition on this corner for our business. Now, interestingly enough, my mom really didn't think about this stuff too often. Like, my mom wasn't sort of all about the bling bling or the ka-ching ka-ching. Not a very sort of like money-centric person. Didn't talk about money much, but I remember this being a fundamental economic lesson. And that lesson was, when people compete for your business, it's good for you. You wind up paying less and oftentimes getting better service. And I remember her sort of trying out the different places. And I remember pump attendants coming out being like, "Yes, sir. How may we help you, sir?" I was like, "I'm 3. You want to talk to my mom? She's in the front." And she's like, No, they're being nice by talking to you. See, that's part of the competition. They're being nice. I was like, "Oh, there you go." And I remember them absolutely frantically cleaning up the windows. And I remember them doing all these things that seemed sort of above and beyond. And then the place across the street started doing all those things. My mom wouldn't go pump at the full service pump, yet people were there wiping off our windows when they'd never done that before. And my mom was like, "This is great. Price wars. See, we do better when there's competition across the street." And I suppose that was a really, 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 really early lesson that got fixed in my head about, well, maybe the free market. Competition is good for the consumer, for you, for me. The free market allows for innovation. The free market allows for disruption of tired, old, worn out norms that might not be the best for you, and replaces them with folks that are actively trying to court your business. And I think of this today because of something I read in the Wall Street Journal this morning. And it also made me think of my childhood, of all these things that we ate while we were growing up. You remember Hamburger Helper? Cereal, breakfast cereal. Something amazing about Saturday morning cartoons and breakfast cereal. It's a magical combo. Campbell's soup, Aunt Jemima pancake mix. All these things, if you think back to growing up, breakfast cereal, canned soup, this is something that filled the pantries of American households. All this stuff was viewed as being affordable, convenient, safe. And for folks like Kellogg's and Campbell's, Aunt Jemima, this was their bread and butter. This was their business. This was what they kept on grocery store shelves. This was what kept flying off of grocery store shelves. And there was absolutely no reason for years and years and years and years to mess with that formula or those staples. Until now, when things are changing and changing rapidly. Why? Fascinating stuff.
Money making, skills on the mic, keep me paid every day, and provided the battles, just bow down, better act like you know.
For more stimulation and less irritation, 9 out of 10 doctors choose KPRC AM 950, Houston's more stimulating talk radio.
Don't get the blues, get all the news. We mean all of you guys out there in Radio Land. All aboard!
He's back. AD on the radio.
Give it up, yeah, give it up, yeah. Bring this on, come on.
So do you ever eat food that tastes like your childhood? You remember this? Like, you'll eat something and you'll immediately be transported back to when you were a kid. For me, that's probably things like, well, breakfast cereal, obviously. Eating a bowl of Kix. Or like my mom was all into no artificial colors, no artificial flavors, no E numbers, no sugar. So it was always Kix, because Kix didn't have anything added. But once a year, when the leaves changed at fall, we were allowed to get a box of Trix because that represented the colors of the changing leaves. Does this make any sense to you? Because it didn't make a ton of sense to me at the time, but all I knew was that for 1 week out of the year, I got to eat a box of sugary cereal the way all my friends did growing up. But there's certain things, like if I eat a bowl of Kix, I'm immediately transported back to my childhood. Or the part of my childhood when I was growing up in England. If I eat a really good shepherd's pie, and by the way, what you get in America a lot of the time is not great shepherd's pie. It should not have cheese on it. It should taste like something. It should not be watery. It should probably be made with a combination of beef and lamb. And when you have the good stuff, nothing else will do. But when I eat good shepherd's pie or good trifle, by the way, is just fantastic. It's like a layer of sponge cake with a layer of cream and a layer of fruit. And it's just the bestie best. But when I eat sort of like, and everybody makes fun of English cooking, but when I eat stuff like a bowl of Kix, or when I eat stuff like a great shepherd's pie or good trifle, something that is very hard to find in America, immediately I'm transported back. There's certain things that are the taste of your childhood, and it's a magical thing. Well, the times, they are changing. If you've got kids, they're going to be growing up with very different memories of food. And I say this because of an article that I read in the Wall Street Journal this morning. Things like Kellogg's cereal, Campbell's soup, Aunt Jemima pancake mix. These were the staples on which we grew up. Affordable, convenient food that filled America's pantries. And for years and years and years and years, companies that made these foods had, well, they're cruising. It was reliable revenue growth from grocery shelves. No reason to really mess with that formula. No reason to mess with what's going on. But do you know what? These absolute giants, these people that made slabs of Americana that filled our cupboards and our taste buds with our childhood memories of pancakes and soup and things of that nature, they're now struggling. Why? Well, there's competition. Consumers are shifting toward fresher items, less processing. Now, if you're cost conscious, you're buying inexpensive store brands. Folks like Chef Boyardee canned pasta and Hamburger Helper. They didn't see it coming. They didn't innovate, and now they're struggling. What about mac and cheese? You can get fancy pasta with organic ingredients or inexpensive store brands as opposed to that package of Kraft mac and cheese with that orange stuff, that orange powder that is allegedly some sort of cheese product that we all just grew up accepting. It doesn't really taste like cheese. It's not that good, but we've just eaten it forever and ever. Amen. That blue and yellow box sitting there in your cupboard, beckoning to you. We grew up on it, but guess what? Your kid, not so much. Hamburger Helper. We all just did the 4th of July. How many of us grew up on Hamburger Helper? 40% less are growing up on it now. And it's fascinating, fascinating stuff. And it's all being replaced. It's being replaced by smaller companies. You used to have to spend bazillions of dollars on an advertising campaign to get people to eat your product. I work in media, I work in radio, and a lot of people question why it's necessary to buy advertisements. Advertisements are in many forms of media what keeps the lights on. And so people go, why do we need to buy ads? Why are you trying to sell me this stuff? When one of our salespeople comes to their door and says, you should advertise your product on AD's show. And they go, you seen a Coke ad recently? You seen a Pepsi ad? What about Ford? What about Chevy? Did you know what Coke, Pepsi, Ford, and Chevy were before you saw the ad? Yeah. But you got to tell them and tell them again. Now, telling them and telling them again used to be unbelievably expensive. But now not so much. The cost of doing business in many ways has changed. Smaller, upstart food companies, a direct path to you, to your heart, to your mind, to your wallet, to your stomach. blogs, Facebook, little marketing dollars spent. Selling food online via Amazon.com so you don't have to pay a truck to pick food up from your place where you're making it, drive it to a store, and get someone to stack it on the shelves. American households, 23% of us are buying groceries online. And you know what? I've started doing this. I think my favorite website for this sort of stuff is Chewy.com. When Millhouse needs stuff, well, here's the thing. I like to buy it online. And you know what I found? I found that I'm saving money a lot of the time. I'm not paying for outrageous shipping. When I want to buy a giant bag of Millhouse's favorite From dog food, by the way, I'm not being paid by any of these folks. This is just what I do. This is my daily life. Millhouse came to me when I adopted him eating this stuff called From, which I'd never heard of before. It was a little pricey, but he has kind of a delicate stomach. I think Millhouse is a fluffy mystery. Nobody really knows exactly what that little guy is, but we do know he's part terrier, and terriers often have sensitive stomachs. And I noticed when I tried to give him some other types of dog food, it did not sit well with his little belly. So I stuck with this stuff called From, and he's happy and he loves it and it's delicious. And I love it because I can get it off of Chewy.com. Do I want to leave and go to a store and pay more and then wind up dealing with driving and spending that gas money we talked about at the beginning of the show and then dealing with people who are the absolute worst? No, I'd rather, from the comfort of my home, sitting on my couch in my underwear covered in Cheeto crumb dust with a couple of clicks of my phone, order something to be delivered directly to my front door or to my place of business or to the street corner that I'm standing on at the moment, and wind up paying more or less exactly the same price as I would by dealing with all the requisite hassle. It's competition. Big brands can no longer control perceptions about food with televised advertisements and shelf placement. Back in the day, the retail shelf, that was an important barrier to entry. This is according to Nestle's CEO, Mark Schneider. And he said, today, the endless shelf of the internet means smaller companies can easily enter the market. Smaller companies can easily enter the market. You don't have to have $1 bazillion to get in the game. You have to have a work ethic. You have to have something that people will truly like and appreciate. You have to have passion. You have to be willing to give up large chunks of your life to get into the game and start a business. But it's not impossible the way it was before. And this is healthy. This is a good thing. And it reinforced to me what I learned in the backseat of my mom's station wagon when I was 3-4 years old, going to and from her aerobics classes, realizing that when one gas station opened up across the street from another one, we were going to get better prices, we were going to get better service, and we were going to have more left over at the end of the day to get the things that we want. We're seeing it over and over again. Competition, the free market for want of a better expression. The ability for more and more people to get into the game. What does that do? It gives you, the consumer, more. It drives prices down. You wind up with better products. Competition. It's good for you. The free market. It allows for innovation. It allows for disruption. It allows for the disruption of tired, old, worn-out norms that have been cruising for far too long and might not be the best for you. There you go. Economics 101, courtesy of my mom on this Tuesday. Funkhouser, how are you? What's going on in the world?
This is My Witness News. In no way, shape, or form fair and certainly not balanced. And now, super producer to the stars, Barry Funkhouser. Barry Funkhouser. Barry Funkhouser. Funkhouser.
My one bit.
Barry Funkhouser.
You know I'm notorious for doing embarrassing things in front of important people. It happened again yesterday.
Oh.
I was talking
What'd you do? Who was it?
There I was, talking to someone that works for Radio Disney. And
Right.
we're talking about something inside. I guess I should start the story by saying I must have bumped my head earlier in the day. Because I was talking to her in line. We're waiting for Will Call, trying to go to this concert last night. And I'm talking to this radio girl, and she's cute. And I'm like, how you liking that country music there? And she goes, well, it's nice because I get to program it. And I'm like, ooh, I'm talking to someone. So then I start doing industry talk. And as I'm talking, a drip of blood drops from my scalp down the side of my face, and I don't see it. My friend sees it. Oh my God, you're bleeding.
Let's rewind this. You are standing in line waiting at Will Call to get your tickets to the big show. You bump into another radio cohort, someone at Radio Disney. She goes, well, I get to program the station, and you go, ding, this is somebody that could potentially employ me somewhere along the line. I'm going to start networking as people like you in Hollywood often do.
I'm going to put on my Sunday best, is what they say.
So you are going to be the best version of yourself that you can possibly be, because not only are you socializing, making a friend, but you're also seeking employment at some stage in the game, because you never know. And during this process of trying to put your best professional foot forward during this fortuitous chance meeting, you start actively bleeding from your head.
Yes, and it's not just a little trickle. It is, looks like a head wound.
What was it? Why is your head randomly?
I don't know. I guess I bumped it on a tree, and also add to the fact it was I had to walk up a hill, like a 10-minute walk up a hill. How are you bumping into trees? I don't know how it happened. I walk up hills
sometimes. I don't start spontaneously plasma gushing.
That's the thing. I don't remember it. I must have scratched a scab on my head, maybe. And it.
Why do you have scabs on your head?
I didn't think I had one. I guess somewhere down the line I hit my head, and it it provided quite an experience for.
I would imagine that you're probably hoping all of us are going, if I had a nickel every time I opened up a head scab and started bleeding profusely in front of a potential employer. But I don't think too many other people have a story like this. Unique, wild, and wacky things happened to you, Funkhouser. So did she point out the bleeding, or did somebody else?
She and my friend, both. And she said, I wondered if he knew that he was bleeding. No. News to me.
So did you find out after the fact that you were bleeding the whole time? Or
yeah, and then I'm like, somebody get me a Kleenex. And it was like a scene for a moment. And then.
So were you bleeding the whole night through?
No, listen, it wasn't like blood, but I had been, there's a heat wave. We're all sweating and stuff. And I had to go up a hill. I had like a 2-mile walk, so I was already dripping with sweat.
So do you think she's gonna, call you? Did you exchange contact information?
Oh no, she left immediately. Mm-hmm.
Oh, what a surprise.
Sometimes you just know you're done. You're longing for that shining sun. You walk these streets most every day. You're waiting to get washed away. Radio 104.1.
Now, more AD on the radio.
Back once again, the ill behavior, delivering and giving you my musical savior. Back once again, it's your boy AD, and can't nobody rock a body better than me. Back once again, the ill behavior.
Are Pop-Tarts ravioli? Yes. This is the debate that is currently raging on the interwebs right now. Are Pop-Tarts ravioli? And because we tackle big and important issues around here, we'll discuss whether or not a Pop-Tart is in fact a ravioli a little later on in the show. Hold your thoughts on this one and we'll get into it later. If you want to tweet me at ADSXE is where you can weigh in, or you can tweet super producer to the stars Barry Funkhouser at Funk FM. Right now though, let's take a look at the events of today in our segment My Witness News.
A campaign committee has been formed to draft Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson to run for president in 2020.
Yeah, he's a natural for politics. It's the only thing more fake than wrestling. As the great Frank Zappa once said, politics, that's the entertainment department of the military-industrial complex. And this is something he said years and years and years ago, and people went, "Oh, Frank, you're silly." And now everyone's going like, oh, man. Oh. Reality television has its finger on the button. Who would have thought? Who would have seen it coming? Frank Zappa. That's who. Go on.
He already has his acceptance song ready, though. You're welcome. Oopie. Black China says she was first attracted to Rob Kardashian because he was sweet and caring.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Rob Kardashian said he was first attracted to Black China because of her enormous fake boobs and a butt that looks like she's smuggling a pair of ginormous hams. Do you find Black China to be... What is Black China, by the way? I really am completely... This is how I can tell I'm getting old. I don't know about a lot of this stuff, nor do I care. I can't remember at what point I stopped absorbing pop culture at a rate of knots, but like... I think this is why these radio folks that get older, like who are some of the top 40 folks that are getting older? Like
currently on the air?
Yeah.
Well, in San Diego, I think you just lost Jeff and Jer. They were top 40 guys that are... Yeah, but they're still
around. Like, what about... I guess, it would be Dick Clark, right? That would be the guy who is the archetype for the perpetual teenager. Mm-hmm. There's something about these top 40 guys where they stay ensconced and involved in all this stuff, and they really kind of like seem to get a kick out of it. And for that reason, 'cause, like, a lot of people are like, the top 40 is a medium. If you're an artist or a musician in it, it's done with you when you're 25 or 30. Like, how dare you even attempt to come out with a record when you're past your sell-by date in this format? Yet the DJs are all, the other side of 50. It's a weird thing.
You're starting to read up on your top 40 trivia because of our upcoming interview?
Which upcoming interview?
The one with Humble Harv coming up.
Oh, hopefully. No. I'm very excited about that. Humble Harv's a whole different thing. And, in case you missed yesterday's show, Funkhouser knows this guy called Humble Harv, a legendary boss jock from back in the day. Guy who was known for filling in for Casey Kasem on the American Top 40 Countdown worldwide. He got into radio back in like 1958. But in 1971... he killed his adulterous wife. He did a couple years in prison. He got out, and nobody really talked about it. Nobody really mentioned it. He was beloved in the industry. There seemed to be a certain amount of sympathy toward his situation. I think he got the charge reduced to manslaughter, and, he killed his wife, set up a prison radio station, got out in a couple years for good behavior, and no one mentioned really the fact that he killed his wife. Like his competitors, the folks across the street, never went, "Listen to me, not the guy that murdered his wife. How about that?" No. It was sort of like this weird thing where he didn't talk about it and other people didn't talk about it, and he is a bit of a legend of a broadcaster. Well, old Humble Harv appears to be willing to talk for the first time since the 70s when this actually happened, and it looks like he might be willing to talk to super producer to the stars Barry Funkhouser and possibly me about all of this. So we are doing our very best to set up the Humble Harv interview.
So we're into pop culture, but we're like 30 years behind.
Well, then I think this falls a little bit more into the category of true crime than who's got a number one hit or why Black. But my point is, I don't know who the hell Black China is. Is she a musician? Is she an artist? Is she just one of those sort of like famous for being famous? I've got a big butt and I post it on Instagram. People, like, what's her deal?
I don't know much about her, but I think the latter. I think you got it there.
So yeah, I did, but I guess like the fascinating legal issue comes from the fact that Rob Kardashian posted a bunch of naked pictures of her on his Instagram, and people were like, "Hey, that's sort of that's revenge porn," and that's illegal in the state of California, and that could actually earn you time in jail. So we'll see how this one all plays out. But there you go. You know what? It's just the fact that there's a kid, a baby, that's a part of all this. And like, these are the two people that are parenting this child, and that's the part that makes me go, that's sad. I think, like, I don't care. I really just genuinely 100,000,000% don't care. I find myself not caring. I'm clearly not cut out to be a top 40 jock, because I stopped caring about this stuff. I'm not interested. I don't know, and I don't care that I know, and I don't care to follow it. I think it makes you infinitely stupider when you follow this sort of thing. Although, those top 40 jocks that make it past the age of 50 and are doing what they're doing are very smart guys. It's just not for me. But the thing that made me go, I now have an active interest in this, was the sympathy I feel for the child in this. Like, these are your parents? These are your parents. What hope do you have? And it makes me genuinely sad that...
Well, they're going to be financially okay, right?
Right, and money solves everything.
Well, isn't the kin the opposite of the parent most of the time?
You would hope in this case, but it's going to put this child probably in the unfortunate position of having to be the parent. There's just all sorts of it's a thread that you don't want to tug at, and it's getting tugged on really, really young for this poor kid that Rob Kardashian and Black China brought into the world. And that was the first moment where I took any kind of interest in it. I was like, oh, these two are parents.
Angela White.
Kid. Go on.
Miley Cyrus got a sunflower tattoo to declare she's a vegan for life.
Is it just me, or was she way more interesting when she spent the entire day high, foul-mouthed, and naked? I missed that, Miley. Lick something metal, would you?
Leave the stimulation to the professionals.
Everyone is so smart.
KPRC, more stimulating talk radio.
There's something happening here, and you should know what it is. The dumbing up of America. Now, more AD on the radio.
So the big question for today, because we tackle big and important issues around these parts, is, are Pop-Tarts ravioli? Hold your strong-minded opinions on this one, and we will enter the fray of the debate that has taken up the vast majority of the internet a little later on in the show, because we tackle, like I said, big and important issues around here. Right now, though, let's finish up what remains of the news. Super producer to the stars, Barry Funkhouser. What else is going on? Are you still bleeding?
They're throttling my internet. They're throttling my internet.
What? They're taking your speed?
Seems that way, yeah.
Do you have... So I've never experienced this. Do you have one of those unlimited plans where they say, just FYI, once you use a certain amount of data, we're going to slow you down? It's still unlimited, but lots of luck crawling along like a snail. Is that what happened?
Yeah, yes, I have that, but that's not the case here. I'm talking about like home internet and stuff. Just, I'm not on business class internet, so I don't matter.
I just got brand new internet.
How's it going for you?
It's 5G.
Whoa.
And I gotta be honest, like, I'm not sure I notice a difference, but apparently it's 5G and all whiz bang super fast, so I'm excited to have that going on. I moved into a new place. I have cable again, and I had cable before, but I had cable. Remember when everybody had to get those digital converters put in the back of their TVs to get cable from the cable?
Uh-huh.
I didn't do that because I was like, why do I need this? I watch everything on demand streaming. So once again, I have cable television, and like my new setup came with DVR. Remember that? Like,
wow.
It's free DVR for like a year or two. I was like, all right, sure, fine. No problem. And I'm watching commercials. Like, not all of them. I'm fast forwarding through them, but I'm seeing more commercials now than I have in the last 3 years because I have cable again and I have DVR. And no matter how you try and time it out and fast forward through them, you're always going to wind up seeing the very last bit of Flo selling you insurance or something like that. I've discovered something. I'm susceptible to advertising man. Advertising man thinks of me as a targeted meat-headed consumer that will just believe whatever the hell it is that pops up on his TV. Like, you know who I love? You know who, like, my favorite television commercial is? Because it's such a scam. It's absolutely fantastic. That guy, and look, I don't know if it's a scam. Maybe this thing works. But you know the My Pillow guy?
My Pillow, yes.
My Pillow.
I'm from Minnesota.
Yeah, and like he wears that sort of silk shirt with a crucifix on the outside of it. Like,
He does?
Yeah. It's an interesting.
There's a lot of
dress.
things on Snopes about that guy. I've heard a lot of rumors.
I don't know if the rumor mill is turning overtime about mustachioed My Pillow guy. I don't know what those rumors are, and I choose not to know it because I find him to be freaking adorable. But he buys all these ads when I have problems sleeping, like in the middle of the night when I'm having problems catching 40 winks. What do I see? The My Pillow guy. And it's really fascinating to me because if you can cater to people that aren't getting sleep with something like a pillow or some sort of sleep aid or an adjustable bed or whatever the hell it is that is supposed to help you get a better night of sleep, different mattresses, things of that nature, guess what? You get to advertise direct to your targeted consumer for less because for those that don't know, buying a commercial at 3 a.m. costs infinitely less than buying a commercial at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And if you're trying to target people that are having a hard time sleeping with your product, it's so much cheaper. It is so much cheaper. And it made me think, like, if I was, a Sharky business individual, I would come up with something that catered to the sleepless and pay pennies on the dollar for the advertising that went direct to my targeted consumer late at night. Does that make sense, Funkhouser? Is that? Yeah, like the My Pillow guy. That's quite the racket he's got going on there. Good for him.
He sleeps well.
When he puts his head down on My Pillow, which is weird.
Well, I have hundreds of them.
Mine. Yeah, when he puts his head down on My Pillow, he gets a good night of sleep. All right,
but Google him because there's stuff out there.
There's stuff. All right, maybe we'll talk about it some other time. I would like to remain blissfully unaware because I can't sleep. I see him a lot. I'm like, the My Pillow guy. So who was the dude that what was it? Was it the Slap Chop dude? The one that
Everybody pay attention because I'm only going to do this once. We don't have time to do this all day.
Wasn't he the guy who bit a prostitute's tongue off? Mm-hmm. There was what else did he advertise?
Florida.
Yeah, it was Slap Chop and something else.
ShamWow.
This ShamWow Slap Chop guy, I guess, was with an escort, and while they were doing stuff, she did something to him that constituted an attack, and his self-defense was biting her tongue. So yeah, the Slap Chop guy, whenever I see him, I do enjoy thinking to myself, that guy bit a prostitute's tongue. That's an interesting little aside. So maybe I do want to know about the scandal of the My Pillow guy. But Slap Chop prostitute tongue biter dude is a different kettle of fish because he's a pitchman. He goes on TV and he advertises different products. My Pillow guy, if we are to believe the hype and the story behind it, he came up with the pillow himself. That's him shilling his own product. So he's not somebody that'll just, advertise whatever for whoever. That's his, and it's made in America, and it's helped him to sleep a better night. Okay, he's not giving us any money. We got to stop talking about him. What else is going on in the news?
Kris Jenner says everyone... I already told you that. Tupac Shakur's last home is on the market for $2.6 million.
Yeah. And don't be surprised if another one hits the market next year. And another the year after. And another Tupac's last home the year after that. Do you see where I'm going with this one?
And another that looks like Tupac's home. A little bit.
Uh-huh. And then you can buy a hologram of his house. Go on.
Shia LaBeouf was not arrested today for public drunkenness.
Right. Mm-hmm. See what we did there with that headline?
He was not.
Shia LaBeouf was not arrested today for public drunkenness. If you're confused, what we've decided to do is save precious airtime by only reporting when this doesn't happen. Go on.
There's reportedly
wait. Hold on. I know. All right. I know where you're going with this.
You know where
next
I'm
one?
going?
Yeah. Okay. So there's a massive Funkhouser. I was about to tell you. There's a massive television show that is about
just
to be
in time for your DVR.
Resurrected. Yes, just in time for the fact that I've got
Fill up hours and hours of time.
Yeah. There's a massive television show being resurrected. No, sadly, it's not a Friends reunion. It's not Frasier. There is a Will and Grace reunion in the works, but hey, we're not talking about that. This is a TV show that was a thing, I suppose, in the mid 2000s, like what, 2006, 2007. This is
there
MySpace.
were so many good shows back then. I wonder which one you're talking about.
This is MySpace era TV, and if you watch this show, you probably didn't admit to too many people that you did, but you definitely watched it. Which show are we talking about? What's coming back, Funkhouser?
Oh, could it be Teen Mom? No, that's on. No, here it is. There's reportedly a Jersey Shore reunion being filmed.
yeah. Let's get the cast of that back together. The ones that aren't incarcerated. What isn't that Situation guy in jail?
Dude, I think everyone will watch that. Really. That
well,
sounds
that's probably
awesome.
why they're making
Should
it.
put on ABC documentary style.
Can you name any of the cast of Jersey Shore?
Mike the Situation,
Sorrentino, like
okay.
The Situation, and
Snooki.
Beyond that,
nope. Those are the takeaways.
Yeah,
that's all I got. And why do we remember those two? Because they were outrageous.
Yeah. So there's that. There's reportedly a Jersey Shore reunion being filmed right now as we speak.
I saw Snooki once.
Oh, yeah?
I didn't meet her, but I saw her. She's really short.
She's like super short, right?
Mm-hmm. Orange.
And orange. By the way, that sound you hear in the background is the folks over at Valtrex, human growth hormone manufacturers and fake tan distributors, all fighting over the sponsorship rights. Go on.
Chicken my abs.
Yeah, it's funny, like that. What was the thing? GTL, Gym Tan Laundry. All those folks around that time, I knew, I used to host a club night every single Sunday night.
You lived over there, around there.
Not in Jersey, no, not during that time. I was in Texas at the time. I used to host a club night out, in that era, like 2007, 2008, I suppose. I hosted this club night every single Sunday night. And I remember all these guys, and girls too, but mostly guys, coming in with those Ed Hardy t-shirts, the ones with like 8 million different colors on them and the sparkly rhinestone stuff, and they were all fake tanned and they had spiky hair and they were all on steroids and they all sort of had those jeans with like the spangly stuff on the back pocket. You remember that? And like lots and lots of ornate stitching and all the above. Do you remember these things, Funkhouser? And I'll never forget. There was a guy that had a t-shirt company that was hanging out at that place, trying to sort of like get me to wear some of his stuff. He's like, when you go up on stage and announce bands and stuff, you want to wear our clothes? And I was like, there's kind of a lot going on there for my taste, dude. It was sort of like an Ed Hardy knockoff situation. I was like, there's a lot going on there, my friend, and I don't know if it's necessarily for me. So I'm going to pass and stick with the old Hanes Beefy original that I'm wearing at the moment. And he was just like, really? You're going to go that t-shirt? That's what you're going to? And I remember saying to him, as he was trying to get me to wear his t-shirt, and by the way, I really admired the spirit of enterprise in which he created this stuff, not knocking his hustle at all, but it just wasn't for me. And I was like, sometimes it's not about the clothes, it's about the man underneath it. And people around me actually cheered. And about a week later, all that stuff went hideously out of fashion. As quickly as it came, it went away. And I remember seeing all these guys that were wearing the spangly jeans and the crazy Ed Hardy t-shirts walk in wearing sort of like, normal clothes. And they just looked it was less of an opportunity for them to strut around like a peacock. It required more substance. If you were out and about, you couldn't rely on your clothes to provide the flash necessary to attract a prospective mate. And there seemed to be a certain sadness in that steroid-laden, overly fake tanned Ed Hardy t-shirt wearing crowd that made me feel a little bad for them, because they had thousands and thousands of dollars of that stuff sitting at home unused, unworn in their closet that was all of a sudden absolutely useless to everyone, and they're walking in going like, stupid solid colors. Fashion is something so ugly it needs to be changed every 5 minutes. Style is something you own yourself, and it's versatile. It's in the way you walk, and it's in the way you smile, and it's in the way you carry yourself. Like I said, it's not about the clothes, it's about the man underneath them. I've got to do something. That was my alarm going off. What do I have to do, Funkhouser? Do I have to pay a bill? I don't know. More news.
Coming from a guy who used to wear parachute pants, true that.
You wore parachute pants?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, look, I am not without sin on this one. Like,
it was the appropriate time to wear parachute pants, but I did. 1997.
I think I had it. Were they those big UFO pants?
They were reflective.
I never.
They looked like aluminum. They looked aluminum.
I did have I don't think they were parachute pants, but they were there was this company called UFO that made big baggy pants, and for a while, baggy clothes, that sort of hip hop thing was, man, we would all be like, who could get the biggest pants and make them work? Can I get the triple extra large football jerseys so it goes down to my knees, and all of the above. I was not without sin when it came to fashion errors. I don't think I made fashion errors that were as egregious as some of the ones that we were talking about, but here I am in my glass house throwing stones, knowing that I'm going to crack a couple windows here, but it's worth it just to point out the ridiculousness of some of this. Oh, we never talked about whether a Pop-Tart was ravioli. This is a debate that's raging on the internet. Some people say a Pop-Tart is, in fact, a form of ravioli. They're both plain casing containing some delicious thing with a yummy topping on top. Is it ravioli? Is it not? You can tweet me at ADSXE or Funkhouser at FunkFM. Later.